I'm going to ask Chris, what got you into EDM originally and what made you want to create a business within the industry?
What's up, guys? Yeah, first and foremost, Justin, thank you so much for having me on, dude. I have to say,
Absolutely. Thanks for being a part of it.
of course, man. Dude, to be honest, it dates back to my years in high school. I remember I was always into like rap music. That was my former years in music was always rap and like rock, heavy metal. So like Metallica, Slipknot, like it just jumped all over the place with rock. And then
Yeah.
back in my day, Ti was one of the hot rappers. Lil Wayne,
Yeah.
the
Love
Carter,
Little Wayne.
yeah. Uh, And I remember dude, honestly, like very vividly, I was in the like gym locker room and I was just sitting there in between periods or lunch or whatever it may be. And I downloaded Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites.
Oh, banger. That was one of my
Yeah.
first EDM songs too.
I don't know what it was. I don't know if I was on Facebook, if I was even out at the time or
Uh-huh.
MySpace, whatever it is, but I had it on my phone or I was streaming it or whatever. And I started playing it and I was like, oh my God, like this is so lit. And then from there, it really kind of transpired into all kinds of different music. I remember after that, riding around with my buddies, like, I mean, we were young at the time, so all there really was to do was like cruise around town and we would always be playing like Dead Mouse, like
Yeah.
classic Dead Mouse tracks, Ghost and stuff, Daft Punk.
Oh,
And then
absolutely.
yeah, those are my pivotal like three artists right there when I first got into EDM music. Um, and then from there, it just kept growing and growing, and that's really when the scene was starting to blow up. This is like 2011, 12, 13-ish, I believe. And so more and more we saw it jump the pond, and like more shows being announced, you know, small shows. I remember I missed the opportunity, but I was able. Skrillex was playing with Nero in San Jose for like $40 to see both those guys.
Oof.
Damn.
I don't know why I didn't go. But yeah, I mean, that just talks to how long this is because now you can't even, Skrillex is like a headliner if he's even playing shows anymore. But anyway, yeah, it just kind of kept growing and growing and growing. And I just got more involved in the music and going to shows. Remember going with my good high school buddy, Steven, to my first festival at Mountain View called Identity. And we went to see Pretty Lights. I don't know if
Love identity.
Yeah.
yeah, I know. Damn, I
You
missed.
don't even do it anymore.
All the OGs know of Identity.
Yeah,
Yeah, they don't
Identity
even do
Fest.
it anymore. It makes me
Yeah.
sad.
That was a huge one. That was an absolute huge one. And then following that is when I moved to LA and I started actually writing for one of the biggest EDM blogs, and gaining experience from that is when I decided I wanted to do my own thing. I've always been interested in doing my own thing. So the magazine, the Era of EDM magazine, is what started first.
Right.
And it started out just as a blog. Then the technology kind of caught up with it where we could publish digital magazines. And then where stuff really took a turn is when I decided, you know what, I'm going to start covering shows. I don't know how to do it, but I've been an attendee for long enough and I see these guys on stage taking pictures. I want to figure out how to do it. So firstly, I went to Best Buy and I bought my first camera. It was like a $300 camera. And I thought it was like the hottest shit after buying this camera that if in hindsight, I look back at it and I go, that
That's
camera
nothing.
was that camera had literally no capabilities and low light, flashing lasers and beams. But I made do, and I hit up one of the local promoters in town, and I was like, hey man, like I've been to your shows a million times. I really want to cover one. Can I maybe come and take pictures? And they gave me a shot, and then I started covering a lot of their shows, got better at photography. It all kind of blossomed again, kept growing and growing and growing. And then shoot, I mean, years later, the era of EDM is actually threefold. So the magazine, it is an apparel / subscription box, the Era of EDM crate, and then the newest lineup to the roster is the event company, which was in part ran Redline Driving Experience in Marysville with Atlians, Tizoki, Minesweeper, and
Had a fantastic time.
Yeah,
Honestly,
so goes.
in my opinion, that was, from what I've seen from Sacramento, I think that was one of the best drive-in experiences that I've had.
You can definitely say that.
And that I've
hands down.
seen. And I've heard a lot of people tell me the same thing. So we did a great job with that. Congrats
Yeah.
again on that.
Thank you guys. But you guys, it's funny that I'm on the podcast with you guys, but you guys were two pivotal points of that show. If you guys weren't there, that show would not have been what it was. So I'm going to throw it back at you. Congrats. And thank you so much. It really was a great show. And I actually hadn't been to any drive-ins I know Vital down in the Bay Area was doing a lot of them. But just from what I've seen and then also what I've heard, we did do a pretty good job. And that show felt really good. I think everything just, there were some hiccups here and there, but for the most part, everything kind of ebbed and flowed. And everybody on the Era team was just so spot on and was there to do work,
Absolutely.
Do work. So
yeah, and I think we had a great team. We all have experience with working for other event companies, and I hadn't been to a drive-in show either. So it was awesome to be able to not even go to one and then all of a sudden work one. So thanks for giving me the opportunity.
I do just want to say that show was just so pivotal in terms of we are in a pandemic. We had to socially distance. There was just so much that was kind of going against us, but we did rise to the occasion. And not only that, but we made it as safe as possible as we could for our attendees and our staff in this time, which is such a huge deal. We gave masks out. We gave hand sanitizer out. That was just not, every other drive-in show that was happening, from everything that I'd heard, no one had done that. No one had taken the precautions to make sure, Chris, the fact that you stopped at Leon's just to get on stage and just be like, hey guys, this is great and all, but we gotta space it out a little bit, but that everybody was yeah, we want another show. I have people who are still begging me, when's the next show?
I have people sliding my DMs what's going on? When's the next one?
Yeah, dude, no, the show was phenomenal.
So, Georgina, I'm gonna ask you the same question. What was your journey into EDM, and what made you want to work shows and be a part of the scene?
So, a lot of people know, but I'm not from the States. So I moved to Cupertino, the Bay Area, back when I was 7 or so. And around the time I was 13, I was with a lot of people who dance. I was helping teach dance classes and stuff. And I was friends with older kids who were 3 years older than me. So they were 16. And there was a lot of underground shows that would happen in the Bay Area. Honestly, anywhere you go in the Bay Area is one of the greatest places to be when you're in love with music, because there's just such an incredible diversity that you see there. You have EDM, you have pop, you have R&B, you have rap. It is, to this day, one of the best places to be if you're not in LA and you're trying to make it as an artist, hands down. And I went to quite a few shows with them, and I remember just falling in love with the scene, the community, the atmosphere, and the way that everything was. And I know you know this, Justin. I don't think Chris knows this, but there was a point back in 2017, where I tried to take my life. And I came super duper close. And, I do thank National Entity for this, because it was the day I got out of the hospital, I wasn't even supposed to go to a show. We were planning on going to this rave. And actually, I remember what it was called. It was Summer Days, 2017. Yeah, and
I was there.
And I remember literally just going I don't think I should do this, because I just got out of the hospital. I didn't see the point in my life. And then when I was at the show, it was just I not reborn, but it was just my soul was cleansed. And I genuinely feel EDM has saved my life in a lot of ways. And I think music's beautiful for that reason, because it can make your life better in that scenario. But when it came down to it, EDM has genuinely touched my life for the better, and has made me, just want to look after other people and love them, and just that community, that atmosphere, the environment altogether, everything as a love, unity, and respect. And that's literally the beauty of it. You don't know. You're not going to get, I've gone to a lot of concerts, going back to what Chris said, I've seen a lot of punk rock shows. I've gone to a lot of Warped Tours. I've gone to a lot of country shows, and I have never been respected at a lot of those shows. Just as a female, you don't really get that respect from, from the other gender. And not to talk shit, I absolutely love you guys. But you go to it, you go to the EDM community, and you're there, and you're at a rave or at a show, and people will compliment you not to try to like get at you sideways in some weird way, but they're complimenting you just to make your day, and then they'll leave you alone. Like when does that ever happen, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what's kind of crazy about it. That's why I just love this community so much. That's why I love the music so much. It's just you're never going to be able to experience anything like this anywhere else outside of
Right.
it.
Yeah, I agree with all the points that you made. You know, that's one of the main things that attracted me to it is all the people. I mean, at this point now, I mean, I've been working in the industry for 3 years, working production teams for about 2. And I would probably say 95% of my friends, I mean, other than like friends that I grew up with, I made like all my friends are from the EDM world. And either they're, you know, they own their own companies or they're promoters, or like it's my whole circle is all EDM people and EDM fans, ravers. And yeah, the community is definitely amazing. I'm going to share some of my story. So I grew up loving music. And my mom, actually, I've been to 300, 400 plus concerts in my life outside of EDM. So I went to my first concert when I was on my first birthday. I went and saw Kenny Loggins in Mountain View as well, I think. Yeah.
My heart.
Yeah. So yeah, my mom, I mean, I grew up with my mom loving music and taking me to concerts. I've seen Justin Timberlake, I've seen Bruno Mars, I've seen bunch of country music. I used to listen to a lot of country when I was growing up. My parents actually met in a country bar. So our family is very like, my dad farms. So I grew up in that kind of like country roots, and I still have that a part of me. And so grew up loving music. One of my buddies actually, he used to sing at my church. Someone who I never thought would ever go to a rave. I saw him at the gym. This was 2015. And just right after I graduated in 15. And saw him at the gym, and he was like, dude, I went to a rave. And I was like, you of all people, like what? So he was like, yeah, there's one tomorrow night. You should come with. And I was like, man, like I've always thought about it. I've heard about it. Like, you know what? Screw it. Let's do it. So
Wait.
I ended up going. Yeah, what's up?
What was your first show?
It was Return of Bubble Island. Yeah, in 2015. So I went, had life-changing experience. I immediately fell in love with the industry and more of the music I had listened to, like we were talking about earlier, Chris. I'd listened to Skrillex and Deadmau5 and Bass Nectar and like top guys back in the day. And so I'd listened to the music, but then I went on to go to my first rave, and I saw some people. I mean, I had already graduated, and I saw some people that I knew in like middle school there, and I was like, man, like these are my like, what is going on right now? Like, I go to a rave and I meet, you know, I see all these people again, and I haven't seen them since I graduated, which is 6-8 months after, and so I fell in love with it. The group that I went with, I'm actually still really good friends with a couple of those people. The guy that I was talking about earlier, especially, he's one of my best friends as well. And he actually no longer raves anymore. He's a paramedic and kind of taken that route, and he has a family now. And but I just really clung on to it, and they invited me after that to Base Camp in Tahoe Festival. And so that was my first festival. That was like 2 weeks after. And
Base Camp.
Yeah, so I went to my first event, and then they were like, I was like, man, this is like life-changing, like super excited. And then they're like, hey, we're going to a festival in a couple weeks. You want to go? And I was like, yeah. So I went to my first festival, and I literally just got thrown into it. And then from that point forward, I would just, I would go to events and stuff, and just enjoyed being there and just a spectator. And I never really thought, I was like, well, that would be cool if, somehow I got to work in the industry someday. Like I'd love to do that. Like I've grown up around music. I'd love to do that. And so I started promoting for National Entity. From that point forward, I was a promoter. I was one of their top promoters, and always made quota for every show. And
I can definitely vouch for that.
Yeah. You were there.
I
And
was.
then from that point forward, I asked Adam, I was like, hey, would you guys ever need help with like actually putting on the show? I know you guys have a team, you have a team. How does that work? How do I get in? And he was like, dude, like you can just work our next show. Just show up. I'll, stay in contact with me and show up. So started working for National Entity, and from worked my first show, and the long hours that shows consist of, and staying up all night, and I was like, this is something that I actually like absolutely love. Like I don't mind staying up all night and pulling these crazy hours. Like it fires me up and wants me, like I want to continue doing this. So then I work for them, and then they, they're not really doing much anymore with National Entity. And National Entity is kind of a thing of the past, unfortunately now. But with Era of EDM, and I've also worked for Symphonic Events, Sacramento, good friends of mine. And then I also lived in Hayward actually last year. And I worked for the company that throws events, weekly events at DNA Lounge, Olympus, who's under Vital. So I worked, what's his last name? Archie, Chris Archie over there. And then, COVID happened, life changes, but ended up moving back, and it's hard for me to drive all the way out to San Francisco every week. But
Right.
yeah, and then COVID happened and we weren't really doing much. And then got approached by you guys to work the show for Redline. And from that point forward, I've started working with a life coach a few months ago, who actually he was a professor at Icon Collective. And he actually also worked for Capitol Records when Black Eyed Peas and Katy Perry launched their career. And so great guy, great mentor to be a part of. Thank you, Nick. I know you're listening to this. So under his guidance, he was like, let's take this a step further. What can we do now to get your foot in the door for your own, journey, rather than just working for events? What can we do? And my idea, my dream career, which I'm hopefully, and this is first step in that direction, is I want to start an EDM radio station someday. So we'll see how that goes. I'd love to do it in Sacramento and do FM station, but FM's kind of turned into a thing of the past, so we'll see where that leads us. But going to be attending.
This is just the beginning.
Yeah,
this is just the beginning.
Yeah,
like I've been posting about this all week with you, and
yep.
that everything. I've been finishing everything with like, this is just the start of something impeccable that you were doing. Because this hasn't been done. This hasn't been done, and
what I'm trying to do something that hasn't been done yet. So,
dude, like it, and I'm gonna speak for Chris here on this section, but like we're really excited.
Wait, we're gonna have to moderate this later, right? No, I'm giving you a hard time.
But overall, like I'm so excited for you. Like I just know that you are gonna go above and beyond with this, especially in terms of like just how much of an audience we've already reached with just announcements.
That has completely blown my mind. Absolutely blown my mind overnight.
It doesn't blow my mind.
I had 100 likes on my Facebook page overnight, and I woke up the next morning. I was like, "What? Okay, this is happening, I guess." So,
dude, yeah.
Round of applause.
Stoked for everyone's support.
Yeah, man. I've told you this story, Justin, but I remember. I think this must have been. I think it was last year. It was mid last year, and we were chilling. I think we were chilling towards the end of the night at a show in Sac, and we were just chit chatting. And I remember you bringing that portion of it up, the FM radio.
Yeah.
Then, so this is super exciting, man, to see the first step towards that.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to add to what you guys were just talking about, and what you said, Justin. It's a thing of the past. To be honest, the Era of EDM magazine was about 2 steps away from having its magazines on street corners downtown, similar to like how SNR and Submerges.
Yeah.
It was right before COVID. So obviously we've backtracked like 30,000 steps, but
right.
But dude, and if you look at the reason I'm bringing that up is if you look at traditional magazines, I mean, every piece of data is going to say, no, man, millennials, Gen Zs, Gen Xers, whatever, they all are on their phone. But there was a huge demand of like, I want to put down my phone and maybe pick something up that's like not traditional and not so tapped, right? And I always put it into the terms of like, okay, well, when our parents were like younger, they were getting so much stuff in the mail, like mailers were the thing, that when the internet came around, that was like, whoa, this is so hot. But now it's like polarized. Now it's like, dude, I'm so sick of getting on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, the internet, everywhere. I just go and it's covered in ads and blah, 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 blah. And I'm not going to like trash on that because obviously I advertise online, but that was part of my thinking with the magazine was, hey, like, let's take a step back and go the other direction and see how we can kind of circumvent and like kind of read, like, how do you call it? Like reinvent the wheel, like
absolutely
bring old back.
I'd say revamp.
Revamp. Yeah. Revamp. So I think it's the same for you, Justin. I mean, honestly, I have a brother and sister that are 18 and they're like the TikTok generation. My sister's like, I tried to buy her a Bluetooth for her birthday so she could plug her iPhone into her car. She's like, nah, dude, I'm kind of chilling. Like 107.9 FM's pretty rad. Like, we're good.
That's dope.
So dude, there's a niche and there's a market for, I think, everything, dude.
And that's what I'm thinking too, is, and especially for EDM, because EDM doesn't really have radio. I mean, Insomniac has their radio station and they have, their thing going on. But as far as just like a local FM station, like it's not a thing. So I feel like, and a lot of people who listen to EDM, they have to stream it. They don't have any other choice. So I think if I offer that to people, I might be surprised at what may happen from that. So
right.
I was going to ask you, Chris, what sets you apart from other event companies and businesses in the Sacramento area, in your opinion?
Dude, this was you sent me this in before this interview, and that was like the one question I was like, man, like I know our mission, I know what drives me and drives the brand and Era to do what we do. But this question is like, this is a very personal one, and one I had to think about some. I think the biggest thing that is differentiates us and will differentiate us is the community we're trying to build behind our brand, and our reach too. I'm pushing for Era to become the show promoter in town let me backtrack a little bit. Right now, and in last years past, dubstep bass has been like the show that everybody puts on.
Huge in Sacramento. Yeah,
very huge, big in markets like SF and Reno too. And
that's just how I feel about that.
And well, you might like this next point then, Georgina, maybe we'll see. But I'm hoping to establish the brand to a point where you're not coming out for, oh shoot, X and X huge headliner bass guy is going to play. You're coming out because Era has established a presence where it's going to be a good show. We're going to bring massive production. Yeah. The show is going to be run very smoothly. So there's not going to be any funny business in any regard. I mean, nothing where it's going to be a place where you can come and you're in a nutshell and in very few words, you're safe and you're going to have a good time.
Absolutely.
And where I want to bring it is I want to be able to just throw a flyer out and regardless of who's playing, you go, oh, Era's name slapped on there. I want to go. This is going to be awesome. Great. So, I mean, we might bring out some tech house guy one day. It might be a that's my thought too.
Let me and bring us trance. Please.
Georgina wants trance.
Okay, just a little bit of a tangent, but Justin knows this. I love bass with all my heart. I love hardstyle shows. I love rhythm. I love dub. But Justin knows this. There's just like a point where you go to a show and it's like redundant. There's just a certain demographic that they're continuously trying to reach, and it's a little disappointing because there's more than that to our community. There's way more than that to our community. Like, house is such a beautiful thing. House is such an incredibly beautiful thing. There's so many different little subgenres of house, but like I just, Chris, like the idea of you bringing other shows aside from bass and dub is so exciting to me because that's something I've been wanting in Sac for so long. And we're just not really getting that very often.
Yeah, I think that is a huge thing, and that's definitely something that I'm trying to do with this podcast as well, is bring other music into, like, my top three. It was Lewis and Child, It was Pax and Para, who did a song for Deadbeats a little while ago, and then also Slander. So two bass people, and then a future bass artist as well. And I'm trying to bring house. I'm trying to bring so. To all of the listeners out there, please feel free to send me music. I'd love to hear.
I always send you music.
And I know you guys will. But to our listeners especially, feel free to send me DMs of music and songs. And I want to grow my own diversity in my own ear throughout this experience as well. So what is, Georgina, I know you got some projects that you're working on. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. By the way, I did forget to say thank you for having me be a part of this process and working with you.
Thank you.
Shut up. Just let me love you. No, seriously, like it's been so much fun. Like just even getting to do your photos, getting to, you know, help give you the support system that you've been needing and like a little bit of guidance to keep your head on straight because it's overwhelming, right? Like this whole month has been super overwhelming since we've started this. Yeah, I do have a project and you are part of this project and you know this. I am working on a mental health podcast that I'm hopefully going to be launching January, come early January, and it's going to be called Spilled Milk. And it's because my name as the host will be Cookie. That's my childhood nickname.
Oh, dude, I love
so I
this already.
wanted to run with it. I've already converted some of my social media, like even my photography page is now Spilled Milk Photography. But the reason we went with Spilled Milk was, you know, the phrase, don't cry over spilled milk. And the goal of the show is, as I said, it's mental health, but I have friends who are schizophrenic and I'm, you know, myself is bipolar disorder. I have friends who have anxiety and depression, and there's a lot to talk about in terms of like communication skills, how to handle the speed bumps along the road, because it's really hard when you're young. It's really hard figuring out healthy coping mechanisms when there's so much negative stigma going around that really influences you. So it's really exciting. I know that my first episode is with you, Justin, and we are going to be talking about relationships, both platonic and romantic, and how they affect us.
Yes, I'm super big on that. I've read multiple books. Also a big reason why I got a life coach, just so happened that he's also a fantastic mentor. But yeah, super big into learning about relationships and studying relationships and all that kind of stuff and working on myself, growing myself. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about our first episode, especially because you and I are going to be talking about like proper communication. I mean, like the overall goal of the show is for my friends to, if they want to, claim anonymity. That way I can change their name, change the pitch of their voice, do what I can to make them more comfortable in sharing their stories, because they're real stories. This is what makes people who they are. Like your past is just a reflection of like what's built you today. You know, and how you rise above it. There's a lot of different ways. And I mean, sometimes you kind of have to hit the lowest low before you can start climbing back up.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to take the opportunity to do this with my friends, not only to give them anonymity, but to take an opportunity to reflect with them how much they've grown and how much they've overcome and their coping mechanisms and what makes them who they are and why they are a stronger person today. What do you do? You know, Justin, like I ask you this pretty regularly, and I've told you this pretty regularly, but I've said, how do you choose to better yourself as a human being each and every day? Like I am a big person on like anti-content. I think content is the biggest downfall in humanity because we just sit there and, you know, become comfortable and in this period of like no growth or anything, and we lose a lot of ourselves.
Especially during COVID as well. It's, you know, a lot of us have gotten really stagnant in our growth, and instead of taking this time to like, okay, I'm gonna read this book, like let's take this time to work on myself. a lot of people are just like, let's binge watch Netflix. So,
Yeah.
uh, so it does take effort, and it does take, awareness of what you need to do. But yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'm excited to be a part of that. Back to Chris, I have one more question for you. What is in store for the future of Era of EDM?
Well, it's kind of a three-parter, and kind of to play off of my last kind of tidbit. The Era, from day one, I always wanted to kind of be a full circle brand. So, we started with the magazine, then we branched into apparel, and they all have their own unique stories why, each one started, and then events came along. So I think one of the main things for us is I'm looking at Sacramento from above, and I'm going, man, you can only build so much higher in San Francisco, which is the closest metropolitan area to us. So, and you're already seeing migrations up, people moving to Sacramento, whether it's the outskirts or downtown. I think it's going to be possibly the next area to pop. And I want Air to be there, to be, if not the one, but in the running of the place you turn when you want to go to shows, when you want to get involved in the community, with our magazine and clothing that goes along with it. I want to kind of make that just a pyramid of, hey, Era is Sacramento. I mean, I'm not going to limit Era to Sacramento. It's already not, but I'm from Sacramento, and I love Sacramento. So I'm very excited to see, as I've grown, Sacramento grown as well. So that's in the forefront coming up. I think right now shows are pretty big. It's very hard to circumnavigate right now. I can tell you that from planning most of Redline, a lot of Redline. But I was actually talking with one of the city council people for the show we did, and they were like, man, we're all on board on this. You want to do it right. I can see that in all of your notations and all of your work thus far. And then he had the audacity to come out and say, even though you guys are trying to do this and you want to maybe turn a profit, or you want to get your brands out there, you guys, you're doing this for the mental health of people that love this music too. Like, you've been cooped up this goes to maybe Georgina, what she's talking about. I mean, these people that used to go out all the time as an escape, or as this is where I see my friends, this is where I meet people. This is just like literally what I love, and I'll do it alone, which I've been to raves alone before. And just because I love the experience and the community and everything. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that really struck a chord with me when he was, we were talking about that. I was like, that is a huge part of it. I mean, we're doing this for a multitude of reasons, but I haven't seen half of my friends who work with me or are going to come to this show just to support.
Sweet.
Small tangent there, but
I think that's a great thing. One thing I think that I asked you that question earlier, what sets you apart is it's a brand. It's not just an event company. It's not just a magazine. It's, you're not just an apparel line or whatever. I think it's going to be awesome when we're back to normal and we're throwing shows and people show up with merch on.
I just want to throw this at Chris, like out of love, but you going back to that question, because you couldn't answer it, I'll answer it. What sets you apart is that you genuinely care. Yeah. And that is so hard to come by. Like in whenever you meet people, it is so hard to come by people that genuinely care. And you do. Like from the day that I met you, I have known that you care, and that you want what's best, not just for your company and your brand, but like the community itself. And that's something 100% amicable about you. And that's why I 100%, when I talk about you and I talk about Justin, I always say, like, I respect the both of you, but I respect your work ethic and the way that you guys carry yourselves. It's very honorable.
Thank you. Yeah. So thank you for chiming in on that. What I was going to say is, people showing up with merch on, and also handing out magazines, and, all in one experience. Other event companies, they don't hand out, they hand out magazines. They don't sell merch at shows. They don't do that aspect of it. And that's a completely like immersive thing that you're trying to do. So that's awesome. But I think we are running out of time here. I was trying to keep this down to about a half hour. So thank you so much for being a part of the first episode in Underground Society. We're going to close the show out by listening to one of our local artists, Jay Fish. He was generous enough to put a great mix together for us today. Thank you so much for doing that, Jordan. If you want to get in touch with me, please feel free to send me a DM on Facebook at Underground Society or Instagram at undergroundsociety.edm. I'd love to hear from you guys, like I said. Until next time, guys. Before we go, how can we get in touch with you guys? What is your social media and how can people reach you?
For Era, it's Era of EDM, at Era of EDM. Apparel, if you're interested in checking that out, we do a really cool subscription box every month. It's like new apparel, accessories, rave wear. That's Era of EDM Crate, just all one word. And then you guys will probably already know, but Era of EDM Events is just Era of EDM _ events. And that's where we post all our fire pictures. And if you follow that, I can guarantee if there is another show here coming up, that's going to be the first place you're going to hear about it. So
sweet. Georgina?
As for me, my socials are still really limited, but it's my first dot last name at Gmail. So georgina.mistakis@gmail.com if you guys need to get in touch with me. I do run a photography page on Instagram, and it is now spilled milk _photography. And that will be featuring like my guests and a whole lot of, I really like landscape photography. So you guys will get to see a lot of my poetry and my photography on there. And if you want to get in touch with me and you want to share your story on my show, I would love that. So go ahead and email me if you want.
Awesome. Thank you again, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having us a part of the show.
Of course. Thanks for being a part of it.